Hello, and welcome to This is Recruiting. If you are joining us for the first time, This is Recruiting is a webinar series that we at HackerEarth have created to bring in industry experts from across the globe to give you their stories and their insights. And if you're hearing about HackerEarth for the first time, so we are a tech recruiting platform that helps you with your entire cycle of tech recruiting. We do this because we have an entire suite of products that can help you at every stages of your hiring life cycle. So we have an assessment platform that helps you attract and source top tech talent. We have a screening tool as well. We have a remote interviewing tool that helps you interview candidates no matter where they are and helps you assess their coding skills live through an interview. And finally, we have tools that help you upskill and continuously engage your candidates as well. So we help you increase your hiring efficiency by up to 60%. And if you want to know more about how we do this or the incredible tools that we have lined up, you can visit hackerearth.com/recruit. So I'm going to put it right here in the chat box and you can visit us there. We have some great resources on technical hiring as well. But before we get into more of HackerEarth stuff, I'm so excited to get started on our final episode of This is Recruiting for the year. And we decided to go out with a bang. So we got 3 of the best speakers we could possibly find from 3 different continents. We've got the US, we've got Europe, we've got Asia as well right now. So before I start rambling about how great it is to have everyone on board, I'm going to let each of you introduce yourself. So let's start off with our very own matron, who's been here for a very long time, who's done quite a few webinars with us as well. Katrina, it's so great to have you back. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes. So I've been in the recruiting profession for 2 decades, which is quite depressing, but I do love it. I just don't know how it became 2 decades so fast. So watch out, kids. It goes by really fast. I've been agency, I've been in-house, I've been a trainer. And then, of course, you probably know me as the author of the Robot Proof Recruiter, of which HackerEarth is on page 173. See, I'm not anti-tech. I'm just anti how recruiters use it. So this is all to make you use it better. And I also deliver design thinking workshops to help get HR, hiring managers and TA all working better together. And I also have a group mentoring program and I speak. And I think that's about it. I get around a bit. And I've just been in wonderful India as well. So I'm quite missing the weather on top of everything else. The food was amazing.
Thanks, Katrina. We're going to move on to Jim. Thank you again for joining us. You did a live event with us in Chicago. It's so nice to have you virtually as well. Can you tell our audience a little bit about yourself and your background?
Yeah, so excited to be back. So hello to everyone in the audience. My name is Jim Conti. I currently serve as the talent partner at Hyde Park Venture Partners. Hyde Park is a venture capital firm headquartered in Chicago. We do early stage investing in technology companies across the Midwest in the US. My role is that I do post-investment HR consulting for our portfolio. So once we've cut a check, those teams have kind of unfettered access to me to ask any sort of people-related question. Given that we're early stage investors, most of those questions kind of hover around recruitment, retention, compensation programs. Like there's really foundational pieces of getting new employees into a business, which for an early stage company is typically what that funding is helping to support. I get to do this job because I did that job before. So I've been a 2-time head of people for 2 different Chicago-based software companies, Sprout Social first, which is in the social media management space, and then D-Scout, which is in the research software space. So excited to be here today and excited for the conversation.
Thanks, Jim. Great to have you back. And finally, last but certainly not the least, from our very own HackerEarth, we have Preeti coming in. Hi, Preeti. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. Hey, everyone. My name is Preeti Sakre. I've been in the recruitment space for about a decade now. I've got an opportunity to work with various geographies, including North America, Europe, Singapore. I've also had the opportunity to work with various industry like agency, startups, SaaS product companies, and I'm currently leading the tech as well as the non-tech hiring for HackerEarth, and I am very much a hands-on recruiter as well. So really excited to be here, sharing the, place with Jim and Katrina today.
Yeah, let's get into our questions. So we have a bunch of questions lined up that's coming from our recruiter community. And the first and most important thing, right, given that we're talking about trends to look out for in 2023. Now, this time last year, the pandemic was still in full swing. And everyone was talking about remote work. We were only discussing ways to incorporate either a remote working model or move into hybrid working. And now, given that things have cleared up a bit, people are going back to office, things are so different now. Do you think that remote working is something companies should prioritize in 2023 as well? And let's first start off with Jim, because you are at the top of my screen right now.
Oh boy. All right. Kicking us off. So I think it's a great question. I think when I think back to, kind of the start of the pandemic in 2020 through kind of this time last year, the remote work push was very much necessary for the continuation of businesses. When I think about the moment that we're in today, when I think about the council that I talk to my companies with, I think about the fact that there is a multitude of setups that can work. And it's about finding the right setup for you as a founder or CEO or leadership team or company or culture, however you want to think about it. And so I wouldn't say to any team that I think remote work is necessary. I think that it can be an option that you choose, but I see just as successful teams that are in hybrid setups. Obviously, that push to fully in office is a challenge at the moment, but there are firms that are certainly kind of going that path because they think that that's how they are going to build and be successful. And so I think it's less that there's a right or wrong answer, I would argue globally, and more that there's a right or wrong answer for you and for your company. So that's where I kind of really try and push people is like, what's the right answer for you and why? And then really kind of unpacking that and then building around that answer.
Right.
Katrina, what are you seeing out there?
I see the companies forcing people back into the office getting screwed. Just like, what are you doing? Obviously it depends in what space you're in. If you're in STEM and healthcare probably have to go into the office. But if you're in an industry where it's really hard to recruit people and you're turning around going, no, you're full-time back in the office, you're just going to lose people. They're just going to leave. They've discovered, particularly knowledge workers, that they can do their job remotely or flexibly or hybridly or whatever. They let them choose. And I think this is a challenge for managers because they're needing to become leaders and they're needing to talk to their people and ask their people what they want. It goes back to all the human stuff, doesn't it? That's been a bit overlooked. But it's that, what do your people want? How do they want to work? And how do they work the most effectively and productively? It's bizarre that there were companies that did so much better in 2020 with their teams at home than they've ever done. And yet they force them back into the office full time. And you're just going, come on. And I'd add to that, a lot of Europe is having a cost of living crisis. The UK is due to Brexit. Well done, UK, for imploding your own economy. So we can't necessarily afford to go into work. It's really, really expensive just to get to the office. So lots of people are just like, I'm not going to do it if I can work remotely and save that money. Even though people will say, oh, heating, actually, on the balance, no. So ask your people, which I think is basically what Jim was saying. What's best for your people and your company?
And Preeti, a lot of, in India at least, I think we've seen a lot of people going back into full-time working, even though at HackerEarth right now we're not. So yay. Not in office.
Yeah, so I think as personally, I feel hybrid working is here to stay because I hear a lot of candidates moving from what's your work-life balance to how is it work-life integration. So they would want to, sort of integrate their personal life into work. I think the pandemic has taught us a lot of things. So a lot of candidates talk to us and they say, it's not about 9 to 6 anymore, right? It's about how can I integrate my personal life into, work, or what are the kind of flexibility I'm getting, right? Again, Katrina, you were saying that even we don't sort of push, our employees to come, but then we keep it open and, we encourage them to sort of come to office, because sometimes, skills like non-tech, you're in sales, marketing, or even HR for that matter. It's very essential for people to talk and, just catch up. So I personally think hybrid, remote working is something probably wouldn't last for a longer time, but again, also depends on skills.
And I think it depends on the companies, doesn't it? I mean, some set up that way. I mean, Buffer, way back in the day, set up fully remote and will remain fully remote. And there's companies that do. But I agree, there is something magical happening. I see it in my workshops. When you bring people together and they're given that space to collaborate in person, it's magical. So I agree. I personally would hate to commit to having to go into the office a couple of days a week, because I love fully remote, but I work for myself. However, I understand that people, are like, please come in a couple of days a week, because I do think it makes a huge difference.
Yeah. Katrina, when you were speaking about kind of the training piece and having people in the room and that there's some magic there, the kind of word that I come to in that is meaning. If we're going to have people come back to the office, have there be meaning behind it. If you're having people come to the office and it's 8 hours of Zoom calls and they're sitting in a conference room or a call booth and they don't actually interact with anyone in person, those are the situations where I'm like, what are we doing, team? Come on. Yeah. But the teams that use those, if they're doing hybrid or they're remote and they're doing those kind of like twice a year annual retreats or whatever, and using that time to really focus on bonding amongst the team, building those relationships that then bridge the time when you're remote, like that's where I see the magic happening, right? That meaning relationship, right? That's what resonates with me.
Because actually we need to remember that offices were set up for extroverts.
Also true.
So, right. I'm actually an introvert, believe it or not. So I generate my own energy. So when I'm around people, I can't get nothing done. I literally get nothing done. So that's why people end up sitting in the office with these on, ignoring everyone. They're sending email messages to the person who's sitting across the table because they don't want to actually talk. So it's again, I think that's why a lot of people have been like, I'm not going back in. I realized how much work I get done at home. Then of course the extroverts are like, I need the people. So I think it is really tough for companies, but you know what? The patriarchy is falling. Things are changing. Yeah. I know I'm speaking very much as a Western opinion on that. It's going to change. It'll roll out across the world eventually. And the world of work is changing. It's irreversibly changing. And it started with the internet. And the pandemic just sort of sped it up. So I think it's exciting for anyone who's not going to be around for the next 30 years. It's going to be so different. It's exciting.
So with our first question, we have a consensus. Surprising. I thought Katrina would want to disagree right off the bat.
Oh, I love disagreeing just for fun. No, I'm kidding. No. I see companies doing hybrid. So
Okay, so our next question right now, which is addressing the elephant in the room. We are currently in the midst of hiring freezes. And one of the top things recruiters are challenged with is what to do once the freeze is thawed. And so what, in your opinion, are the top things recruiters need to focus on right now once the freeze is lifted, right? So let's start with you, Preeti.
Right. So I could probably, tell what is that we are currently doing, right? One thing, considering the hiring freeze, we are focusing on building a database because there are a lot of skill set which we very frequently hire. Say a software developer, could be back end, front end. Right? Could be even, account managers or SDRs for our sales, right? So what we are focusing currently is building a database of all these candidates. So once a hiring freeze thought, we are there, right? We don't waste much of time on sourcing candidates. Having said that, once the hiring freeze is thought, it's also important to understand where your business is at that particular time, or what is the focus of your business, right? Say, for instance, if you take a product company, maybe our product is, at a very mature stage where, we just need more of clienteles and not many engineers. Probably we don't have any new features to develop, or we don't need product managers. So, it's very important to touch base with all your hiring managers, your business, to see what is your need. Right. And then, you already have your database, which is ready. Just go back and, kind of start your hiring, which saves a lot of time. So that is what we are currently focusing on during the hiring freeze.
Right, right. And so important to build like a good pipeline as well. I think that's something that we've all learned throughout this entire process. Jim, what do you think?
Yeah, so Preeti, I agree with what you just shared there. And I think that that's kind of like one of those internal looks. One of the external looks I think about is employer brand. One of the big mistakes I see companies doing is that if they go into a moment of a hiring freeze or a hiring slowdown, that they like turn off all of those brand efforts, which I think is a miss. I think it's a miss on two parts. One, that routine, kind of routinely putting your brand in front of potential candidates, whether it's in a moment when you're hiring or a moment or not, you're staying front of mind for them. And so continuing to invest in those types of strategies. So if you're doing those types of like employee spotlight stories or kind of like views into our culture, stuff like that, keep doing that. The second reason is that I think for candidates, when they are looking, you start hiring again, if they look at your LinkedIn account and they see that you didn't post anything for 3 months because you're on a hiring freeze, what that communicates to me as a candidate is you don't actually mean any of the things you're saying in those messages. You're just saying it to get me to apply. So I think one of the big mistakes I see is turning off that branding effort. I think that should continue through this period. And if anything, kind of increase that so that there is this really rich repository for candidates to look at when you do start hiring, to learn more about your culture, to see what you did in a moment of business slowdown or crisis or something like that. Because I think that speaks a lot to who you are. So I would say focus on the branding side, keep those engines rolling, even if you're not interviewing candidates actively.
Yeah. Right. And Katrina?
What hiring freeze? So you made a very blatant statement there. Not every company is having a hiring freeze. And the problem is because some of the big players have done a reduction in size because they overhired and misforecast, much as they're not saying they overhired and misforecast, because heaven forbid our leaders were honest and told us they made a mistake. We're seeing a lot of copycat hiring freezes and a lot of copycat layoffs. And actually, there are many, 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 many companies out there who have not reduced their hiring and who are still going. I was talking to a recruiter yesterday, but the day before, he'd put out 6 offers. So this week. So it's like not everybody. So just be aware of that, because it's very easy to be bought into the doom and gloom of what's going on. However, Preeti, I can applaud HackerEarth for not firing your team.
Yeah.
I am so tired of seeing companies fire people like, let's get rid of the employer brand team, let's get rid of the TA team, let's get rid of the marketing team. And then they spend 6 months ramping back up when they're ready to hire. So yeah, I just want to throw that in. I think it's very, very impressive. But I do think a lot of the problem is we're rebalancing. So even if there is a slowdown, it is just this. I mean, honestly, people did just go a bit crazy last year. And I think it's because a lot of people came out of lockdown, started spending, and there was all this, there was all this money, and then it was crazy. What can I add to what you just said? I think you practically said it all. What I would be doing if I don't understand, so say I don't really understand what engineers do or developers do, go and ask them. Like, I know you were talking to the hiring managers and stuff, but you know, if you're a recruiter and you're listening, you go, I don't really understand what they do. Go sit with them. They'll show you. They'll explain what they're doing. And then when you can go and start talking to more people, you'll have more of an understanding. And I also applaud the companies that haven't cut the L&D spend, the learning and development. They're still investing in their people now. It's probably the most important time to do that so that you can keep the people who are feeling unsettled. I mean, imagine what if anybody left at Twitter feels like. You know, what's the future of our company? What's going on? They're all looking. They're all, I'd be stunned if anyone's going to stay and put up with that. So it's like you've got to look after the people as well who are feeling unsettled. That was a lot of waffle.
I want to give you a +1 on both the maintaining your recruiting team as well as the L&D spend. So just like a quick comment on both.
Yeah.
I'm hopeful and not entirely happy with what I'm seeing, but I'm hopeful that there is some lessons learned from that COVID hit early 2020 period when there was that kind of pendulum swing moment of mass layoffs and lots of uncertainty. That was only years ago. Like, how do we not remember that?
How did we not learn from that?
Right. And so I think a lot about recruitment teams, especially TA teams, especially is like teams that are incredibly well-versed about a business. I always say that I would put my recruiter up against any of our salespeople at any moment, because I'm like, I guarantee that they can make a sale.
Yeah.
That's the confidence I have. And so there are many places in a business where that skill set, that knowledge base is helpful. And so like redirect those people for a few months.
Get your sources doing all the biz dev leads. I mean, imagine what they could get up to. Yeah,
totally.
Actually, I'll throw something out on that while we're talking about employer brands and layoffs and that kind of thing. So we had 2 companies do layoffs. We had Stripe and Twitter, and they pretty well did them in the same week. I fly to Australia. That's before I went through India, obviously, on the way back. But I'm standing on stage in Sydney, Australia. How many people here? There's about 500 recruiters in front of me. How many have seen the email? Practically every hand shot up. This is the world we now live in. Screenshot an email. Out onto the internet it goes. There's no fear from employees whatsoever, because they have the power, and they're always going to have the power thanks to the internet. And it was the difference between Twitter's, which was cold and heartless, and Stripe's, which was, here are 7 ways we're going to help our people. Here are 2 lessons we've learned, and here are our names. And this is the number we're going back to. We're going back to our February figure. And it was like complete leadership compared to, I don't know, dictatorship. Does one say that? Autocracy.
We'll just call it non-leadership for the moment.
That awful person, please don't emulate him. He's gone crazy. But, it's that be that aware that your people will screenshot that email and send it out on the internet, and they don't care. They don't care.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Different world. There we go. I don't know if that was the answer Rebecca was expecting, but that's what she thought.
No, I think it mostly covers that. I actually wanted to go back to a thing you said about copycat layoffs and, copycat hiring freezes. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
God, I'm not an expert. Actually, Jim probably knows better. He's in the VC space, aren't you? It's the not really having a grasp on how your business is doing and how your figures are, and just going, well, if they are, I better. Yeah. It's as simple as that. And I think it's quite, Jim probably sees this far more than I do. I only know this from talking to startup recruiters. They do get these companies get these injections of cash, and then they just go out and start hiring with no plan. And really what they should be doing is getting in that people operations person right from the beginning, or, having someone like Jim on tap who can sit and put some reality around it, and slow down the speed with which sometimes they're just like overhired, don't they, all of a sudden?
Totally.
So they get so excited. And then they panic because the cash starts. A runway of cash. That's what Glenn Martin was calling it. Their runway of cash starts running out. He'd be the perfect person to answer that question. Jim, sorry.
No, I think there's like 2 different places my brain goes on that. I think one, when I was in-house and we would get our new round of funding or something like that, and inevitably I would get a lineup of employees being like, does this mean I get a raise? Does this mean there's a, this, that, or the other thing? And of course we want to take care of our people. I will say that. But the number one thing I always said to people is like, you need to think about that round of funding as a giant loan we just took out. We have to pay that back several times over if we want this business to be successful. And I think that mentality got lost in that like 2020 into early 2022 kind of VC capital deployment, just kind of insanity. And so that what happened was you had that like ratchet up that happened in that time with teams trying to compete for talent and trying to win their market space and kind of those pieces. And then exactly as you talked about with the Stripe example, they kind of recognized, well, we way overshot our skis on this. We
made some mistakes.
Yep. So I think one there, I agree. 2 on the copycat side. So I don't know that I have like a study or something.
It is different in the US. You are being impacted.
But I would agree that there's an element of like an umbrella of like coverage for a company to be able to do a layoff. And I tend to find that the copycats tend to correlate a little bit more to like performance oriented layoffs rather than sheer cost cutting for the business. But it is a little bit of coverage. And I'm confident to say that some companies definitely use that coverage to make some of those actions happen.
Okay. Interesting, because I'm not sure. I mean, I'm Preeti, you can probably speak to this, because I'm not sure if we've seen that in India. Maybe I just don't have experience. I'm marketing. I'm not a recruiter. But Preeti, have you seen that in India as well with like startups and stuff, since you've worked with a lot of startups as well?
Yeah. I think like Katrina said, it's like because they are doing, we'll do it, right? You just panic. You don't know what's happening at times, and you're at a place where it's startup, and then you see one person do it, second, third, fourth, and then you're like, I think I'm missing out on something, like, and secondly, of course, you tend to overhire when you get some funding. Suddenly you are in the news, and you just want to do something. So instead of hiring 3, you just go hire and hire 6, right? So mostly, I think even in India, a lot of startups, especially in Bangalore, right, a lot of people have been affected by all these chaos which is happening currently.
Yeah, chaos is a good word.
Yeah.
Actually, Elizabeth Lemke was on our little video show last week, and she was saying that we shouldn't hire anybody if we can't keep them in a 20% downturn.
Yeah.
And I think that the heads of people should be asking that. I think the recruiters should be asking that. Can we keep this person in a 20% downturn? And then you really start them. Interesting take, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because people will start going, oh, let me think about that. Actually, oh, God, I'm not sure we could. Okay, well, maybe we should get a contractor. Is it just a project? What should we do instead? Instead of playing with people's lives. And last week I was getting very angry about, I don't know why. I don't even know this person. There was somebody who sold up his entire life in South America, literally everything, his car, his house, everything, to move to North Europe. I'm trying not to say the company. And his offer was rescinded 3 days before he started. That man will never get back on that property market at the same level. He'll have made a loss, and there'll be no compensation because the companies won't compensate for stuff like that. We play with people's lives. And I think in this kind of chaos, hectic roller coaster, whatever, I'm trying not to swear, the expletive it is, I think we as recruiters have more of a responsibility to kind of push back and say, can we keep this person in a 20% downturn? That is Elizabeth Lemke's question, by the way. I can't claim ownership for that. It's my pet peeve. Pet peeve when people steal other people's content, don't give credit.
Actually, even at HackerEarth, we pretty much do the same, right? Whenever we get a new role, we spend at least 2 or 3 days to even understand why do we need this person, right? Especially if it's a new role, and I think that is one of the reasons we've been so cautious about our hiring throughout, where we've never had layoffs because of this. Every time we've opened up a role, why, right? And then we push back the business and say, what is the needs? What is the whole team size? Why do you need this person? Or if there's an attrition, if there's not much of a difference, we don't normally fill that position. So I think one of the things which I really admired about HackerEarth, because I'm fairly new to the company as well. It's just been 7 months. And, when I was interviewing at HackerEarth, and during my interview, when I spoke to all the interviewers and I was asking them about how was pandemic, it was very surprising. They said that, okay, it went pretty well. So I think, a lot of them should follow, lean recruiting. I think that is the word.
There is some serious insanity in some companies.
Yeah.
So I won't. She's a family member who, I'm trying not to give away who, works for a membership company, and there are something like 25 in HR, and the company is 160 people. And she's in the member services side. In other words, trying to keep the clients happy, and is so unbelievably short-staffed, like 4 or 5 people start and can't get sign-off. But she's just going, what are they doing? We don't even have enough people to, like Jim's face is priceless, right? Yeah. Question every role, think it through. No, it's brilliant. I was just going, I'm sorry, what? I was like, what?
One of the other,
I love that.
One of the other ways that I think about, so I love that, like, can we keep this person on with that, like 20% reduction? Yeah. That's super interesting. I will throw out there that sometimes it's hard for an early stage business to have that much clarity. And so one of the other ways that I would offer, like, a way to think about that is sometimes I'll talk to one of my hiring managers and say, like, okay, so we're trying to hire this role. Let's envision this as there has been a failure. Like, there's a we have to hire this person because we have failed as a team. I have failed as a leader. Yep. Using that as kind of the basis for building the job description, because it starts to build in, like, what it is that person's going to work on and achieve in those first kind of couple of weeks or months as they're stepping into the team, because you're articulating, like, what has been the miss that we've had that this person's solving for us. And so, like, a slightly different way, and a kind of a not a little bit more on the like earlier side of the process. But that's been another way that I've kind of encouraged folks to kind of think about hiring right now is that how do you articulate this as like this person is solving a failure of the business and thus creating real like intention hook for them to be there rather than like, oh, it'd just be really nice to have like a 20-person demand gen marketing team right now. And you're like, but what are they all going to do? Kind of, right?
Exactly. What's the problem they're coming in to solve?
Yeah.
Good.
Right.
That's a Steve Levy in my book. Anyway, sorry, Rebecca, go on. Do another question. We'll never get through any.
Look, this is a really good discussion. It's nice to hear so many different viewpoints coming out, and I like how we're moving to different topics as well in this one thing. So I don't have to necessarily stick to our question list. I mean, of course, given that everyone in the audience, you are more than welcome to ask questions. We will get to them. So our next question is focused on tech recruiting, and I'm going to start with Jim here because you're hiring with a lot of technical companies as well, right? So what are some of the tech recruiting trends that you foresee for 2023?
Hey, cubs. Oh, sorry.
Come
on, let's be honest. There are some seriously overpaid tech recruiters out there. Come on, let's be honest. I've just upset half your audience. Sorry, but it's true.
I'll let you fight that battle. I think we're all come in on this one. Katrina, you actually mentioned this a little bit before. One of the things that I'm seeing already, and I'm curious to see how this plays out a little bit more in the future, is the diversity of employment relationships. And so I do feel like there is a bit of a move away from kind of full desire for full-time employment relationships as the only option. I think that's been a bit of a trend, kind of, especially just before the COVID period. I think that was a real preference for companies. I certainly ran my recruiting function in that capacity. What I'm excited to see today is kind of the multitude of relationship types. So whether that's consultant, contractor, freelance, fractional, and project-based. And so one, I think it creates a lot of flexibility for workers to be able to figure out kind of what is the relationship they want with work and their employers. And for employers to have more flexibility on staffing and budget, it creates other challenges from culture and communication, security and compliance stuff for sure as well. There's complexities come with it, but I think that's one thing I'm really interested to see is kind of how we continue to evolve in that direction and whether or not.
You're meaning specifically how you recruit technical people.
No, the relationship you're setting up with that technical person. So are we hiring this person as a full-time employee, part-time? Are they a consultant for that kind of a thing?
By the way, my flippant comment was because I thought you were talking about tech recruiters specifically, how they were. So I still stand by that comment.
Go for it. I love it.
No.
So that's one of the things that I think I'm really interested to see is that continued evolution of that employment relationship between employer and employee and kind of that continued redefinition of what an employee is.
Yeah. And I think that goes back to, I would love to see greater partnerships with hiring managers, like better intake strategy sessions. I mean, I wrote about that today, that they must be done better. There needs to be much more respect. There is still a massive shortage of technical people and it's not going to end anytime soon. There's just not enough coming in from school. It's just not. So that's not going to change. So, hiring freezes or not, there's still a shortage of technical talent. So I think recruiters getting much better at conducting intakes and getting under the skin of that and being able to almost have a crystal ball so they know what's going on. Maybe closer with workforce planning and people partners and all that sort of stuff. So evolving.
Right. And
Preeti has a very confused look on her face.
Right, because I completely, have a different view. I feel, you should focus more on employee retention and just because we speak more about tech hiring or hiring in general, we somehow miss out on, upskilling, right? So when we hire someone, as organization, we will have to, tie up with multiple, say, education institute or even certifications for that matter, because I think that also saves you from the later hiring, which is going to happen because the employee feels at some point burnt out and they say that, I don't know what to do next, right? I think whenever we are hiring or any companies for that matter should focus on, understanding what the potential employees' needs are in terms of, I think one other thing which we keep on hearing from the candidates is that are you guys tied up with anything else? Do you sponsor higher education? So upskilling is something which is, very important, and also from the employee retention, because it saves you a lot of money from hiring the same person again.
Yeah.
Right. So I feel, so retention and hiring, I think the balance is in terms of upskilling your employees, which is very important.
Yeah. Debbie Easterday, who's she does a lot of search out of New York. She was telling me that with her clients, she will say, like, they're looking for a DevOps person. They can't afford the salary. Yeah. There's so few, right, they're ridiculous. And she's going, just get in a consultant for 3 months to do that project work. And you see that person over there, they have fully transferable skills. Get them to work together and learn. And then you've got the in-house knowledge, and then that person will stay. So it's like getting creative. So, again, if you're on the agency side, you can consult to your clients as well and suggest things like that to, to help them. I'd love to see more of that. So.
Yeah. One of the other things that kind of resonates with me, and it came up a little earlier in the conversation, is also that I think there's going to be more of an expectation from candidates that recruiters are well informed about the business, because candidates are trying to make an informed choice about where they're landing next. And especially if they were caught in a layoff recently and they're trying to find a place that's going to be a kind of a safe home for them for a little while. So I think that there's going to be a bigger call for recruiters to understand what's happening in the business, the health of the business, and be able to speak that well. And that comment more actually goes to leadership being transparent and open about what's going on, so that their talent teams are able to do that. But I think that that'll be another thing that we'll see as candidates pushing more on recruiters to share more about the health of the business and kind of what's going on, what's good, what's not good too.
They need to be getting into the finance department and asking all those questions as much as they can, which will also mean, I think I wrote an article about that, didn't I? Like TA being seen as a cost center, because they are, but I don't want you to be. If you go and talk to finance and become known, liked, and trusted by them by asking these amazing questions and really understanding the figures on the recruitment costs on top of the business and how the business is doing, then you can plant those seeds like, oh yeah, no, I know Jim looked like an expense like that, but he brought this much into the business. Oh, I know that person was this and they brought this much into the business. So you can have these kind of conversations. Really good time to be having them while we're in the middle of this chaos. I love the way Preeti put it. Chaos.
I'm going to take a quick segue now, because I have a question from the audience here who's pinged me on chat. So I cannot see. Okay, it's an anonymous chat, but it says, someone is asking, do you see moonlighting being a trend in 2023, something that continues into 2023?
Do you mean where someone has like 2 jobs?
Yeah.
Yes.
I can't actually answer that one.
Yeah.
Good for them if they can manage that and not get caught.
Right. I'd probably take that, Rebecca. So I think that depends, right? A lot of companies are open. In fact, HackerEarth, we are open to moonlighting as long as you come to us, you talk to us about it. What is the nature of job in terms of whether it's going to affect our business hours or, whatever work you're doing currently with us. So we are quite open to it. But then there has to be a communication, and also conclusion has to, hey, you know what, I think it's good to go. So we as a company don't see that as a problem. And I think a lot of companies are also moving to that. Again,
maybe it needs another name. Moonlighting sounds negative, like you're deliberately working somewhere else and hiding that from the company, as opposed to, actually, I want to work for you 4 days and on the 5th do something else, like being a bit more open.
So you're basically consulting, right? If you're an independent consultant, if you're a freelancer, you pretty much take like multiple opportunities. But then here, only thing is here in India, you sign on agreement and a lot of things. So we just came to a conclusion that, hey, why not? As long as it's not affecting our business, and if it makes sense to you, if you're doing justice to both the jobs, why not?
And that promotes the trust, the transparency, the retention, that feeling like you're being treated like an adult, not like a child. Oh, how the world of work has changed in 30 years. It's quite amazing. I love it. Really impressed.
One other thing that I'll throw in there is that I'm gonna point at leadership again on this one, but I also think that this points a little bit to goal setting and kind of creating clear expectations for team members. We already talked a little bit about kind of like work-life integration, and that has been a trend that we have seen and we want to continue to see. And so I think a lot about it, and I counsel the companies that I work with to say your relationship with your employees should really be about like, what do we need from you for our business to be successful, for you as a leader to really define those, work rigorously to understand what do you need to achieve to be successful. And then if someone's able to achieve that in 30 hours versus 45 or 50 or whatever, then like, cool. Great. Let them do with the rest of their time what you want. And Katrina, I think that back to like trust and treating people like adults and that kind of thing. So I also look at a bit of an answer to that question as like pointing back to leadership again. Of like well-defined goals, clear expectations, and then people can operate within that.
Yeah. It goes back to those companies that did so well when their teams were remote, and then suddenly went, but you all have to come back in. It was just like they trusted them and then they didn't. There were companies that did better and they still don't trust their people. I can't remember where I read that. It's definitely in my book because I came across it while I was researching. And again, you're right. It's leadership. It's all about, because we want leaders now. We don't want managers.
Yeah.
And it's hard for companies. I started out in the world of work 30 years ago. It has changed so much in that time. It is mind blowing. I mean, we couldn't have done this. We were on 3 different continents having a video chat. Didn't even exist. We didn't even have these when I started out in the world of work. That's how long ago it was. Any of the kids that are on here laughing at that, by the way, you watch. It'll be you any minute now. Goes so fast. Did that answer that person's question? I hope so.
I think so. I mean, I haven't gotten a follow-up, so I guess so. I think...
Let us know.
Adding on to what Preeti said as well, right? Like about gig work in general, right? About freelancing. And I think those are trends that we're seeing more often right now. I think moonlighting was something we saw like towards the end of 2022, right after quiet quitting happened. So people finally drew boundaries. Okay. They moved into getting a completely new, different job altogether.
I would just like to say that the boomers created the internet, and the Gen X, my lot, created the crazy work. Oh God, what's it called? The hustle culture, right? Overwork. These have a lot to do with it, because it's really hard, to establish a boundary when, there's another message, let me answer that, and it's 10 p.m. So I blame our lot. So if you lot are like my age or a boomer and you're complaining about the younger millennials, is that correct? The later millennials, whichever, and Gen Z going, do you know what? We call it Gen Z here, Gen Z. Oops, I just got corrected. What would I know? I'm a Gen X. I'm old. We created them, so let's not complain about the fact they would like to have work-life balance, which actually the silent generation before the boomers had. They did work normal office hours. Somewhere along the way we lost it, and work just took over. And it's just these have a lot to answer for. So let them claim back their life, because really, technically, in your head, you want to. Sorry, having a generational rant.
Everyone on what they think about quiet quitting. Jim, Preeti, can add on about quiet quitting.
Quiet quitting isn't real. I've hated that since it first came out. It's a weird stance of people, powers that be, trying to name the fact that folks are trying to live their lives as well. And so I think if people are living up to the expectations of the role, again, I'm back to like clear goals, clear expectations. If they're doing the things that you're asking, then like, I don't understand what the issue is. So I'm in a similar bucket where I think it's a false narrative that's being told to try and I don't even know what it's trying to do necessarily. So I'm happy that it feels like it's falling off the radar a little bit. It was a frustrating couple months there to hear that constantly.
Ugh, annoying.
Preeti, anything to add on to that?
No, I think Katrina and Jim pretty much covered. So.
Which is like not touching that one.
Yeah. Preeti would just say it so much more diplomatically than I would. But I think this just goes back to leadership all the time, doesn't it? We just are wanting different leaders. We want, I do think it's going to be really interesting. I think Gen X is a lot more with it than what some of the older leaders. And I think they're starting to retire. But you know what? That's what they knew as well. That's what they experienced. You did what you were told. You know, when I started out 30 years ago, we didn't have the transparency created by the internet. I couldn't see what other jobs were out there. If you told me what to do, I did it. You never left another job without another, all those kinds of things. But now it's this power like shifted to the employee. And it's, so interesting. We just want good leaders because we can see if you're not treating your people nicely, and we just leave and go elsewhere, which goes back to employer brand.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So just for everyone in the audience, we actually did another webinar on quiet quitting as well. And we have a blog on it in case anyone wants to check out.
I hope they said it was pants. I hope you didn't come away and go, quiet quitting is a real thing.
But same sentiments across, right? We had another woman, Crystal Lay, coming in who told us about what it actually meant, how it started out, and why it is not in any way a negative thing, and why people should stop worrying about it, making such a fuss about it.
No. Quiet quit, people. Have boundaries. Seriously. Learn from Gen X who are stupid enough not to. Right.
And Katrina, I'm glad you mentioned employer brand, because that's actually my next question, because one of our last questions for the evening. My evening, your morning, it's all different everywhere. So we can expect a lot of changes in 2023, but there are some things that stay constant, right? Yeah. Especially your employer brand. And we saw a lot of what people were including in their EVP at the time, right? What do you think is something that recruiters should focus on for the coming year, right? What should they include in their EVP there?
I'm less concerned about employee value proposition because I don't like more buzzword bingos, if I'm honest. I would like to see proper intake strategy sessions. I think where the entire recruitment process goes wrong and leads to a bad reputation, which leads to a bad employer brand, and then the EVP can go out the window, is because of we don't do good intakes. And we don't get good SLAs in place with our hiring managers about how we're going to treat people. We don't have a firm process, all that sort of stuff. So really, let's go back to that. And then it also, I think we need to remember when it comes to brand, you can create a brilliant employee value proposition and be like, oh, this is what our people are like, rah, rah. And then one mass layoff via email, cold and callously, and the whole thing's out the window as well. Really, your brand is so much more than that document. It really is your reputation. How are you genuinely treating people? Because it's all on the internet. It's on Recruiting Hell on Reddit. What's the other one that's on Reddit? Work rant, work life, work something. There's another hilarious one on there. People go and they name the company while they're going, this is how I was treated. You know, it's that. It's so much more than. So, and I think this goes back to, with this change in leadership, we used to have these dreadful videos that would come out from the leadership and they'd be polished PR and nobody really believed them. It's like we believe what's really being said about the company now. We don't believe that. I'm trying not to say don't try and polish a turd. That would be really bad to say that on a webinar, wouldn't it?
Now you've said it, so it's out there.
We're going to edit that.
Weirdly, I was looking at Jim. Yeah, there's probably a few bits you need to edit out that I've been a bit rude about. But but I don't think anyone's going to be bothered by that word. But keep it real. Yeah. It's real. Just that.
Yeah.
It's the likes of when you hear Preeti talking about the how I was treated through the interview process, how they've been with it, the freeze that's on now. All of that, like how people are treated, that's genuinely what your employer brand is. That sort of stuff. I'm really impressed by your company now because you've been talking about it. I'm like, wow, HackerEarth are really good, aren't they?
Right. Yeah, the EVP, we have a EVP deck which we shared with the candidate even before we start the entire process. And like you mentioned, Katrina, we jot down our values, mission, our vision, all of that. But now that I can, just following up on what we were speaking past just a few minutes back, I think it's very important for your EVP deck to have what is your leadership looking like, right?
Yeah.
share some thoughts about what is their leadership style. Could also match your leadership style, or they say, right, leaders bring in more leaders. So it's up to that. I think it's very important about introducing your leaders in your EVP so that you're aware about what you're getting yourself into. And I think the last thing, I think any EVP should have is the benefit part of it.
Of course.
Over and above your other, the compensation. Like we, especially mental health well-being is what we are focusing on currently, where we have one-to-one help. And, that is something which we don't, or especially in India, is something which was never spoken about before.
Yeah.
Right? Now that it's out there, and a lot of companies have been following it, and we do have menstrual leaves, right, for our employees. So these are something which, instead of, it's out there. So I think every EVP should have these things. And now that we were speaking about leadership, is something which was missing in our EVP, and I think it's something which should be included right now.
And I think it's making sure so everything you've just said is then backed up on the internet.
Yeah.
So genuinely checking, do our reviews back that up? Does our news back that up? Does anything that they can find online back up what we've got in this deck? Because if they can't, then you need to start getting concerned.
Yeah.
So I think is what I was getting at in my very waffly way.
Yeah.
Coming out for dinner time, I'm getting hungry. But you guys probably want to go to bed, to be fair. Jim's like, I'm fine. I'm on my morning coffee.
Here we go. I think the last comment that I'll make, and this just rounds out a little bit what was being shared there. I think a lot about confidence and trust being built through employer brand and EVP these days, especially if you had to go through a layoff in the last year, being able to put some messages out there about, what happened, what did you learn about it, what are you doing differently this time, and rebuilding that candidate trust feels really important at this moment in time.
Aw, thanks, Therese.
It's so amusing. We don't have questions, but we have people just complimenting everything that's happening.
Yeah, they probably couldn't get a question in, to be fair. We were too busy debating it out.
So we're actually almost at the end of our webinar right now, and just to conclude, I want to get one thing from each of you as to what you're excited about for the coming year in the recruiting space, in HR, and whatever it might be. Katrina, do you have a new book that you want to announce here right now?
No, I am actually writing another book, but it has nothing to do with recruitment. Obviously I would love people to buy a copy of this because I donated my royalties to charity, so please buy a copy. But in it, I'm talking about the human all the time. So could we please remember we are humans recruiting humans? Let's stop thinking, ChatGPT or whatever it's called is the answer, right? It's how you use these tools. It's how you use the technology that matters. We're humans recruiting humans, and we're all flawed and we're all different, and we have our all thoughts, feelings, and emotions. So I would just really please, could we get back to remembering that's what we're doing? I just think we just forget somewhere, and we've lost the compassion and the kindness. I really want to see it come back. Actually, a bit like Jim said, you think we'd have learned some lessons from 2020, but it seems not.
I think to follow up with what Katrina was saying, I think automation is everywhere, artificial intelligence is everywhere. But then while hiring, I think we should focus more on the emotional intelligence as well, right?
Yeah.
Being cautious about a lot of things in terms of whether you want to hire or not, whether the kind of message you're sending out to your potential employees. I think emotional intelligence is very important. It has to be, something which is very essential in the hiring trend in 2023.
Yeah.
For sure.
And I think I'll wrap out the trio here, but probably not too far from what the other two have shared.
As he opens ChatGPT and asks a question. No.
I'm actually an AI. A little did any of you know? No. I come back to the term meaning. I come back to being hopeful that we continue to build meaningful employment opportunities, meaningful bonding opportunities for our teams, and stay human centered as we're building our organizations.
Love that. That's the word for 2023.
There we go. I'll take it.
Love it.
Okay, yeah, with that, I think we've come to an end. And oh my God, this was the most fun I've had in an entire panel discussion webinar session. Thank you so much for making the last one of this year so great. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Katrina. Thank you, Preeti, for staying up so late, especially.
Yeah, I don't know how you're awake.
See you in office tomorrow, Rebecca.
Yes, see you in office tomorrow.
Preeti is definitely not quite quitting, is she? What time is it? 10:30? No, 9:30? 10:30?
10:30.
10:30. Wow. That's way past my bedtime.
Life integration. So I've managed my time really well today so that I could attend the webinar.
Absolutely. You have a big sleep in the morning.
Okay, yes, thank you so much. And to our audience, to fill in our survey form so that we can send you more resources and also get in your opinions on what you'd like to see next, because we're still building our topics for 2023. In case there's anything you'd like to see, do let us know on the survey form. And thank you once again to our panelists. I hope you have a great rest of the year. Happy holidays, Happy New Year. And I will see you guys again on maybe one of the next sessions next year.
Brilliant. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Good night. Good morning.